Andrew sat in his small living room, staring blankly at the television screen, though he wasn't really watching. His wife, Sarah, and their teenage son, Lucas, were absorbed in the latest episode of some reality show. The familiar hum of their voices, mingling with the exaggerated drama on TV, felt distant to him. He had once enjoyed these moments, sharing in the simple distractions of life with his family. But now, everything had changed. His consciousness had just recently been marinated with an elevated kind of awareness. Sit tight, because now I'll tell you how it happened. It had been a quiet morning when Andrew's life shifted in a way he could never have anticipated. He had woken up early, as he always did, sipping coffee at the kitchen table while the rest of the house was still asleep. Something, though, had pulled him inward, away from the usual flow of his thoughts. His sense of self began to dissolve, as if it was peeling away layer by layer. At first it was unsettling, but then a calm washed over him. He had disappeared, but everything remained. The kitchen, the coffee cup in his hand, the birds chirping outside the window. It was all still there, but somehow it was different. Everything was connected. Everything was one. "It's just this," he had written hastily on a napkin as the realization struck him. It was the only way he could describe what he had experienced. No self, no ego, just the present moment, the world as it truly was, alive and vibrant with a subtle energy. In that stillness, he had felt a love he couldn't put into words, a love that seemed to radiate from the objects around him, from his own body, from the air itself. The boundaries between himself and everything else had vanished. The chair he sat on, the walls of the room, the trees outside, they were all him. It was as if the universe was gazing at itself through his eyes. Nothing was separate, and yet everything was perfect in its ordinariness. But now, as he watched Sarah and Lucas, he realized how different he had become. They were still living in the world he used to know, where TV shows mattered, where social media updates and idle small talk filled the spaces of their days. It wasn't wrong, he reminded himself. They were in their own reality, just as he had been before his awakening, and he loved them for it. "Andrew, did you hear what I said?" Sarah's voice pulled him out of his thoughts. He blinked, looking at her. "Sorry, what was that?" She sighed, her eyes filled with a mix of frustration and concern. "I was asking if you wanted to go to the movies this weekend. You've been so distant lately. We never do anything fun as a family anymore." Andrew felt a pang of guilt. He had been pulling away, not intentionally, but because the things that used to excite him no longer held meaning. The small talk, the TV shows, the endless stream of distractions, they all seemed like noise, pulling people away from the deeper reality that was right in front of them. Yet he understood that Sarah and Lucas didn't see things the same way. "I don't know, Sarah," he said softly. I'm not really into movies right now. But you and Lucas should go. Enjoy yourselves." Lucas, sitting on the couch with his phone, chimed in without looking up. "Dad's just too deep for us now, huh?" Andrew chuckled, trying to ease the tension. "It's not that, Lucas. I just see things differently these days." Sarah glanced at him, her brow furrowed. "But what do you mean, Andrew? You've been saying things like that a lot lately, and I just don't understand. What's different?" Andrew hesitated. How could he explain something so simple and yet so profound? How could he tell them that the person they had known, the Andrew who had laughed at the same jokes and watched the same shows, was no longer the same? That the person who used to fill the room with conversation had glimpsed a deeper truth and could no longer find joy in the surface-level distractions? "I've just realized that life is more than what we usually focus on," he said finally. "We spend so much time on things that don't matter, TV, social media, small talk. But there's something more, something deeper." Lucas rolled his eyes. Like what? Meditation and sitting in silence? Andrew smiled gently. Maybe. Or just being here, really being present with what's around us. Sarah's face softened, though there was still confusion in her eyes. I just want you back, Andrew. The man who laughed and had fun with us. Andrew reached for her hand, squeezing it softly. I'm still here, Sarah, but I've seen something and it's changed me. I've seen how connected we all are, how everything is one. His words hung in the air, and for a moment, neither Sarah nor Lucas said anything. They didn't fully understand, and that was okay. They were on their own journey, just as he had been. He couldn't force them to see what he had seen, and he didn't want to. They needed to come to it in their own time, if they ever did. In the weeks that followed, Andrew tried to meet his family with more love and understanding. He didn't push his new perspective on them. He let them be, content with the knowledge that their reality was just as valid as his own. He participated when he could, sitting with them during their shows, but his mind was often elsewhere, in the stillness he had come to know so well. One afternoon, he received a call from the hospital. His mother had been ill for some time, and the end was near. As Andrew sat by her bedside, his heart ached with pain at seeing her so close to death, watching the slow rise and fall of her chest. He also felt a deep sense of peace. He knew that death was just another part of the cycle, another transition. His mother had lived her life fully, and now she was returning to the same oneness he had come to recognize. She opened her eyes, weak but lucid, and smiled at him. You've changed, Andy, she whispered. I see it in your eyes. Andrew nodded, his heart full of emotion. I have, Mom. I don't know what it is, but it's good. You seem free. Tears welled up in Andrew's eyes. I am, and you will be too soon. She closed her eyes, a single tear slipping down her cheek. I'm ready. In that moment, as his mother took her final breath, Andrew felt the familiar wave of connection wash over him. There was no death, not really, just the continuation of energy, of consciousness. His mother was not gone. She was part of everything now, part of him, part of the air, the trees, the stars. It's just this, he whispered to himself, smiling through his tears. As he left the hospital, the world outside felt more alive than ever. Everything was vibrant, shimmering with the energy of life itself. He knew that Sarah and Lucas might never fully understand what he had experienced, but that didn't matter. They were part of the same oneness, whether they realized it or not, and that was enough. Andrew walked home, at peace with the world and with himself. If you like the video, you might also like this one.